Welcome to Real Talk with Nivoda, where we speak to leaders who are driving change throughout the industry. And today we're speaking with Brett from Queensmith and talking about his relentless drive for improving the customer experience and the product he delivers. Hi Brett, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
We'll kick it off hearing a little bit about your background and how you started in the industry and how you built Queensmith into the business that it is today.
God, where do you start? It's quite a journey, I suppose. So the business started about 13, 14 years ago. I had no background in jewellery. Really, the decision to come into the market was all about opportunity. I'd run a business before that was all around customer experience. So I'd worked with some of the world's largest and most recognised brands and spent a lot of time advising clients on how to sell to customers. So I really understood the mechanics of selling. And when I sold that business, I was like, oh my goodness me, what do I do now? And literally jewellery was my lack of better idea. And so when I came into the market, really it was about understanding what customers wanted and then building an offering around that. So I didn't know about the diamond side of things, didn't know about the manufacturing side of things, but I did know about the customer side of things.
What does the business look like today?
In terms of what we do, it's no different to what we did on day one of the business. So customer is the centre of the universe and everything we do focuses around that customer. In the early days of the business, before we had the workshops, before we had teams and the marketeers and all those sorts of things, and it really was about turning around and looking at what a customer wanted, advising that customer on how to optimise their budgets to get them the very nicest ring that they could. At the time, I couldn't really find anyone else that was really doing that. That was really sort of the beginning of the business. What we do now is still so customer orientated. It's still the customer is the centre of our universe. Everyone that works in the business shares that view that the most important person in the room is the customer. And that served us really well. We've sort of been able to grow the business, been able to get into a market that at the time was very closed. It was about who you knew, contacts that you made. And when I turned up, I didn't have any of those. So kind of had to sort of start small and sort of move it from there. But those fundamentals of customer centricity have always underlined everything we've done as a business.
What would you say some of the most important things you've done to make sure that your cost of goods are low as possible and that you're able to run an efficient operation?
Efficiency is key in any business, but not at the expense of the end product. So we make no compromise on what we manufacture. We have internal systems that allow us to do things efficiently. So everything from our comms through to the actual sort of customer, customer touch points, those have been fully mapped out. And so we sort of, we're able to, make sure that we're able to deliver very high levels of sort of quality in terms of customer experience by using all of the sort of the tech that's at our disposal. There's been a big development in customer efficiency. It's expensive to acquire a customer, and so by correct comms at the right times, we can always make sure that our conversion rates are nice and high. While efficiency and cost control, is important, I don't want to shortchange my staff by trying to get them for cheaper. Clients don't want us to turn around and go, right, well, the ring's 20% off in price because the ring's sort of 20% not as good. Clients are paying us for something that is going to be enduring with the quality of some of your West End big brands. And the way we do it is by efficiency of not having lots and lots of stores, by having people coming to us rather than a store in the most expensive locations everywhere. I like to think that we're the worst, best kept secret in the jewellery business. If you really want the quality of Cartier, you want the experience of De Beers, but you just don't want the brand premium, that's really where we fit in, and we've been incredibly successful at focusing on what I would call a sort of a private label product. If I look at the market and the way the market's moving, you've got big brands out there, they're at a peak at what they can charge. In the cost of living crisis, people want value for money, and where our business is great is that we can offer all of the things that clients want with an underlying product that is really magnificent, a fraction of the price of a big Bond Street rival. And that's irrespective of whether or not the client's looking at a lab-grown or a natural. You know, you'd be mad, in my opinion, to go and spend, you know, something that's been produced in huge, huge quantities when you can come to us and we can make you something that's completely unique. You might not get a glass of champagne, but, you know, provided you're all right with that, you know, that's where I think our market's really been strong. But, you know, in terms of product, no big secret. I don't think it's a, you know, massive, you know, sort of surprise of what we do. I think it's a fairly simple business model. It's very complicated to get it right, and it's incredibly complicated to get it right at scale. But to do that, you need the right people around you, and thankfully we're blessed with an amazing team.
What are the biggest challenges that you've had while building your company?
When I came into the business, everyone's always been sort of hands in work going, oh, you know, the market, oh, it's such a difficult market. Oh, it's never been as bad as this. Christmas has never been as quiet as this. And, you know, I'm a guy, I quite like change. I get quite single-minded, but, you know, I also get bored quite quickly. Yeah, I think if we look at the last 10 years, what have we had to deal with? Brexit. It was a great decision, that one. Really just put absolute sort of a stranglehold on a lot of skilled labour that had come across from Italy, from Paris. France didn't come across. People that went home in the pandemic didn't come back. Incredibly challenging period for the business. If you think, you know, we're at the time weren't selling anything online, it was all face-to-face. £1 million worth of work in progress. And, you know, we got through the pandemic by the skin of our teeth. I always say that probably the most challenging point was there was a point in the pandemic where I was down to my last £4,000 in the bank. And, you know, if you haven't got money in the bank, there's not too much you can do. I think that we've made the right calls. We're very early in the lab-grown business, probably be 2014 I bought my first lab-grown stone, by being focused on manufacturing and by being able to offer people really what they wanted, the whole package, and still come in on budget. That's really helped us grow the business. So there's a lot of opportunity in the market. It's a market in massive state of flux, but deal with change pretty well. And your ability to be able to deal with those changes is, I think, going to be either how you win or how you fail in the business. You know, you've got to be an embracer of change.
So you've used Nivoda for a number of years now and by millions of pounds a year with the platform. What has worked for your business and what do you want us to do better?
If we talk about Nivoda within our organisation, it's often sort of likened to Deliveroo for diamonds. You know, if I was to go and, you know, put my order in, you know, what I really want is that it's going to turn up hot, as I've ordered, nice and quickly, and we get that from Nivoda every time. A real advocate of the platform. It's really sort of helped us in terms of sort of streamlining some of the sourcing that we do. You know, for us, I think sort of changing sort of some of the sort of dynamics of how we've historically operated in the market. In terms of the things that we like from Nivoda, difficult to say. I think your innovation cycle is always great. There's always new stuff that's popping up on it. Sometimes it's a little bit frustrating when suppliers are listing goods that aren't available or have sold out more quickly. We've lost sales as a result of the stone that a client's picked not being available, which is frustrating.
So reducing the sold out rate is a really important one.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, you know, there must be, you know, in terms of how you manage that, how do you manage that?
We see about 1 in 60 diamonds are sold out at the moment. We did have it as high as 3% at one point, but the teams have worked on different ways of making sure that supplier stock is live. We expire the stock every 48 hours and not wait a week like other platforms may do. We also coach suppliers how to keep their inventory live and how to make sure that when a customer places an order on Nivoda, that takes priority. And we also have things like webhooks. So when something sells out, we can connect to your site and take those stones off your site before the new feeds are actually being uploaded. So there's a few ways that we're working on that and making sure that we can reduce that for the industry. Yeah,
Lots of stuff going on.
Standing shoulder to shoulder with the customer and helping them select the best diamond for them from a global supply.
Yeah.
Is that because we're no longer running inventory filled stores, but we're running a zero inventory business model? Is that helping you do that?
Well, if you take natural stones as a business, one of the country's biggest sellers of engagement rings, what is amazing is that I think we had less than 20 natural diamonds in our inventory. We would run the business on an approvals-based business model. We'd know what clients were coming in for by pre-screening it, and then our buying team would then go and find goods in the local market. And what's really changed is that lab grown does not require intermediaries. If we now look at our inventory of lab grown stones, well, there's probably 600 odd stones that we carry in inventory at any one time to cover the vast majority of orders. Where platforms like Nivoda are super useful is when someone comes in and says, well, actually, I don't want any of that. I want a 4-carat heart-shaped stone that we generally wouldn't buy in inventory. What's great about Nivoda is that we can sit with a client, use the Nivoda tools to be able to turn around and suggest with an expert's eye on appraisal of which stone would be right for that client. We can then buy in confidence that the Nivoda back-end teams are going to do our quality controls, do all of the toing and froing with the supplier, get hold of the goods, quality control the goods, make sure they arrive a few days later so we can get back the client. And the likelihood is, if we can get them back into store to approve the amazing stone that we found on the Nivoda platform, the sale's made.
From what you said, there's a requirement still for natural diamonds to have an APRO or a memo model, but less of a requirement for lab-grown stones. Is that right?
Yes, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I think that diamond dealers in London, certainly in Hatton Garden, there is always going to be a requirement for holding natural stones. But increasingly, there are clients that will turn around and go, I want a natural stone. I want the best value for it, and so we will then use the Nivoda platform for sourcing those goods. I imagine that if we looked at our sales of natural stones and we looked at what percentage are bought through Nivoda versus what are bought from dealers on an approvals model, it's probably somewhere about a quarter of the stones that we would sell in naturals would come through Nivoda, ordered directly for clients. But there is still a place in the market for diamond dealers for naturals. We just don't want to take the balance sheet risk by holding the wrong inventory. If you go and buy a 1-carat D VS2 stone and the client goes, yeah, love it, but have you got one in a SI1? Well, we can't hold everything. And so it's better that we rely on either the dealers or the Nivoda platform to fulfill those requirements there. With lab grown, the turnover is so quick that there are some goods that we can't buy fast enough. Mm-hmm. Certain categories of good that we're after, and we're able to use the Nivoda platform to cherry pick exactly those goods there. It used to be in the back in the day, we wouldn't be able to go to a diamond merchant and go, well, we only want DSI1 triple X's. They'd always be like, well, what about the rest of it? With Nivoda, one of the great things about the platform is that there's collective buying power to be able to turn around and go, I just want one of those, rather than having to turn around and go, I just want that one there, but I know I've got to buy another £100,000 worth of inventory so I can get that one piece I need. And so for us, Nivoda is good on those grounds there. Things that we do need and we can then replenish very quickly. That's when the Nivoda platform is excellent for that.
Where are we going with lab-grown and natural?
Well, for me, it makes no odds whether or not someone chooses a natural stone or a lab-grown stone. It is a personal choice. We are there to help a client optimize their budget, turn around and say, look, what's the typical brief you get from a client? Stone, big as possible, quality, high as possible, price, low as possible. That naturally falls to a sort of a lab grown. What it's doing is making the inaccessible accessible. Really what we're then doing is turning around and saying, let's make the remarkable accessible. And so, we want something that's, going to work for all people. I think lab grown is great because it's democratized diamond ownership. You're seeing a slight uptick, I suppose, on lab grown, but there's still a market of people that want natural and see the value in something created by nature millions and billions of years ago. Wonder of nature. There's also an awful lot of people that buy into the wonder of science. And for those people there that don't really care about, a stone that's been formed billions of years ago, that's been mined underground, it's not important. But what is important is the sentiment attached to the piece, and that's really what we're about, is making that piece. Whether or not you choose a natural stone or a lab-grown stone, it's a client's choice. They're my boss, they tell me what I need to do, and we'll set that stone for them. But really what we do want to do is make sure that whatever they are choosing is best of best, and then making an informed decision on it.
Your stock keeping in lab grown is really for accessibility and speed to be able to deliver quickly. Natural would be more so that they can touch and feel and see the diamond before committing to a purchase, really. And that's why you'd use the local diamond stock that's available within the market to be able to showcase to your customers. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, I think with lab-grown stones, we've spent the last year developing a range called Quick Ship. For us to be able to manufacture a ring from scratch, we need usually about 4 weeks to get it turned around. We're looking at processes to reduce that time, but it still takes time. Really where my vision is that you can turn around and pick from our range of best-selling rings. We can then take our stone from inventory, set that stone, ship next day, which is far better than waiting 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks for something. To be able to do that, it does require us to have the stones there and then. Also, we want to be able to offer clients choice. So when they're coming in, the great thing about lab grown is it allows us to have the inventory of everything you could possibly want in store for them to see. With natural, it's just never possible. You can always say, well, I've got this, but I can get you something else. With lab grown, we've got everything there.
I see the biggest area for Nivoda to really be able to help and expand and help with more of your sourcing needs would be to offer that memo model or APRO.
Yeah, I think that's probably there's no need for a memo model, I don't think, in lab-grown stones. A DVS1 is a DVS1 1-carat stone. If you sold 20 of them last week, the likelihood is you're going to need 20 of them next week. Hopefully, 21, 22 if the business model's growing correctly. But, with a natural stone, as the market's falling away, so if you think that 75% of our business is now lab-grown, it makes it difficult to hold very big inventories of natural stones. Nivoda holding those stones, yes, of course, would be useful. I don't think you make too many friends in terms of local dealers that are relying on that immediacy of stock. But there is a requirement for a APRO model, especially when prices are not particularly stable. You don't know what's coming up. I still don't think we know the real impact that lab grown is going to have on the price of natural goods, which for a long time I felt were far, far, far too high. So approvals does have a place in the business.
Thank you very much for coming today, and thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure. Once again, thanks again.
Thanks for an awesome chat with Brett here at Queensmith, and I look forward to seeing you next month with Real Talk with Nivoda.